From Baxter's 942 Bar and Grill in the Highlands in your Derby City, this is Shooting from the Lip Live. My name is Erik McHugh with your host, Mr. Kevin Hale, and to your left, Kevin, the local authority, in my opinion,
very much so,
on sports in this town, Mr. Kendrick Haskins. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Man, we're good, man. Glad you're here, dude. Just got off the road?
I just got off the road. I'm glad to be off the road. I do enjoy U of L women's basketball, but I've traveled enough for the last 3 or 4 months, so I don't mind sitting this one out and holding down the fort back
This
home.
is your Christmas, right?
No. No. It's a very busy time of the year, and it's been even more this year because, I mean, I was just thinking about it. It's like before last year, 2017, I'd only been to New York 3 times in my life. Since then, I've been to New York, was it 3 or 4 times this year.
Already?
Because I went to the ACC tournament last year. I went to Lamar Jackson's Heisman, went up there for Patino, and I went up there for the ACC tournament this year. So 4 times in a year.
Wow. I hear you.
It's insane.
Well, here we are. It has been a fascinating sports month for the local schools, for the state, for the entire state.
Right.
And so let's stay with the local school first, Louisville.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, first of all, I want to know, how's your bracket right now?
You know, I only filled out one, and that was just on a spur of the moment. I was on a radio show, and I just filled one out real quick, and I'm pretty sure it's busted. I think I had my Final Four was Arizona, which busted it on the first day. I think I had Michigan State, so that's 0 for 2. I'm pretty sure I had Villanova, and I think I had North Carolina. I forget at this point. I forget. It all runs together. So,
who'd you have taken it? Do you remember?
I may have had North Carolina repeat.
I could see that.
Because they looked good at one point in the season, but Texas A&M just mopped the floor with them.
And then Texas A&M got their asses handed to them.
And they got mopped by Michigan.
Yeah.
So.
And, you know, the one thing with March Madness, I think the precursor to March Madness for this season is that there was nothing like we've had in the past where the major schools dominated. I mean, there was a lot of surprises, a lot of upsets, which
during the regular season,
which made for potential interesting March, NCAA tournament, and that's exactly what we've got.
Yes, but even then, even with that, I mean, it was still surprising me. You know, it's so funny because like during the season, you would call it. People would say, it's the perfect season for a mid-major to come out of nowhere and go to the Final Four. But then when it actually happens, you're like, what the hell just happened with Loyola Chicago? And the way they play, though, they are fun to watch. They play good basketball. They move the ball. They take good shots. And they're a team that, and then, like, you look at their record, they're, 33-5. I think they had the longest win streak coming into the Final Four, and then I think Michigan's right behind them. And you look at them, it's like, they've got a legitimate shot of going to the championship game, and it's insane.
Is Clay Custer NBA material in 2 years?
It's hard to tell because, Damian Lillard came out of nowhere. He came from a mid-major. C.J. McCollum, they both came. I mean, the Portland Trailblazer backcourt basically came from mid-majors like that. And so, I mean, it's very possible that he could be in a couple of years be in the NBA. He'll get drafted. Now, whether or not he makes the impact that they did, I doubt it, but you never know.
Let's go back to the local school here, Louisville. This season, Louisville men's basketball. Mm-hmm. A crazy season for them. A season where an interim Coach David Padgett, preseason they lose Coach Patino. Padgett comes in. Considering everything, I think Padgett did a pretty damn good job with this team.
Considering that he had never even been a lead assistant coach before, I think he did a very good job. Yes. I think a lot of Louisville fans lost sight of that during the season because they would get so upset with him, the mistakes he would make, And yeah, he made some. But the guy's never been a head coach at any level at any point. Hasn't even been a lead assistant. I think he's only been an assistant coach, period, for a couple of years.
Right.
And so for him to take over in that situation, he did a bang-up job. And I think just a lot of people lost sight of that because they're so spoiled and think they're supposed to win. You know, you want to win, you get competitive, but if you really just look at it, it's like, man, this guy got thrown into the worst situation of anybody getting their first coaching job ever. And he did a pretty good job.
But to his credit, like I said, he did a pretty good job. And the fact that he, from his personal perspective, for his resume, it's a nice little tag on his resume to have one season at U of L, a 20-win season. I personally thought they should have went to the NCAA tournament. They should have.
They should have got. I mean, it's crazy when you think about, like, Florida State got to the Elite Eight. Well, Louisville beat Florida State 2 out of 3 games. Virginia Tech gets into the NCAA tournament, and Louisville swept them. And so, but they get into the tournament, and Louisville doesn't. Arkansas was arguably the worst 20-win team in the country.
They got in. Yeah.
They get in the tournament. So, Louisville should have gotten into the tournament, but at the same time, while they didn't have that many bad losses, excluding the Kentucky and the Duke blowouts, and losing at home to Syracuse, that's about it. They should have made the tournament, but that Virginia game, you just felt like we kind of felt like the NCAA didn't want Louisville in it anyway. But that Virginia game, that loss to Virginia at home, if they win that game, they're in.
Oh, yeah.
Without the scandals plaguing U of L right now, would they have been in the tournament, you think?
Yeah, I think they would have been. Because if you look at all of those schools just about that were that was in that FBI investigation, they were either not in the tournament or out of it by the second week, by the end of the first week of the tournament anyway. It was amazing how it worked out for the NCAA. Arizona went out early, and Arizona was a team that, Arizona's one of those teams I never picked to do anything because they have a long history of choking in the tournament. But the way they were playing coming into the tournament, I was like, okay, they're for real. They have a chip on their shoulder. They're playing for their coach. They're trying to give the FU to the NCAA. Then they come in there and lay a complete egg against Buffalo. I was sitting there at that game, and it's like amazing to see how bad they were playing. And it's like they quit. They did. They quit for like the second half. The second half of the second half, they just quit.
A lot of highlights during this NCAA tournament, and we're going to try to touch on several of them. But let's stay with Louisville right now. Louisville men's basketball, they let David Padgett go. They named Vince Tyree. Is it Tyree?
Vince Tyree.
As their athletic director. They removed the interim tag on him. He goes out, and as of earlier today, it's been broadcasted by every news outlet, sports outlet, local outlet. Chris Mack, Xavier is the new coach. However,
we just got an email, even though I do think it's more semantics than anything, but from the University of Louisville, reports that the University of Louisville has hired a men's basketball coach are premature. There is no contract. The appropriate boards have not yet met to consider a contract, nor are the board members aware of any items in a potential contract. More than anything, I think it's semantics.
Well, we're looking at Courier Journal right now, and they're talking about, he's hired, but they're also quoting ESPN with numbers in the contract, $4 million over 7. Now, ESPN has been guilty of, they rush to put stuff out there that's not really there. That's what they're doing, and then Courier Journal's just saying what ESPN's saying.
Well, I think part of it, too, is a lot of the information is coming from Xavier, because Louisville hasn't put out anything. We talked to Vince Tyree today, and Vince Tyree would not answer questions. He would not confirm that Mack was even the coach today. And so I do think the deal is done. I don't think the specifics are out there yet. I think a lot of the information is coming from the Xavier side of things, and so I think that's where a lot of the information is coming from. And I think that's why U of L is getting out in front of it and saying, because the U of L basically wants to make the big splash. We have a press conference tomorrow at 4:00 at the KFC Center. And there's no way he said no. And so
Now, you say big splash. Is Chris Mack a big splash?
I don't think he's a big splash, but he's the biggest splash you're going to get. Okay. I'm so sick and tired of seeing Louisville fans talking about they want Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens is not leaving the Boston Celtics, who are the second seed in the Eastern Conference, to come coach this mess at U of L. Even if it wasn't a mess, he's not leaving that job. I mean, that's the premier job, the Boston Celtics, and you're second. And so you're telling me you think that Brad Stevens is going to leave coaching Kyrie Irving to coach Darius Perry? I mean, there's no disrespect to Darius Perry. He's a great kid and a very good player and has a good future ahead of him. But Brad Stevens is not going to give up Kyrie Irving for Darius Perry. And so stop it. I was arguing with somebody yesterday. Then a lot of them were talking about Shaka Smart. His buyout at Texas is pretty huge. Plus, have you watched what he's done in Texas?
It's been less than.
Right. I mean, there's an idea that he only has maybe 1 or 2 years left to get that thing turned around. And he had one of the best players and best high school recruits in the country, and he barely made the tournament this year. And so, I do think, while it's not the great big splash, it's about as big of a splash you're going to get.
So we're looking at, where are these numbers coming from? $4 million over 7 years. If Xavier's the only one,
they're probably coming from Xavier, I would imagine. But
he was only making like 1.6.
Yeah, it's over 100% increase.
Well, that was part of the reason why there was no way in hell he was staying at Xavier. Yeah. Xavier was not going to match that.
7 years. Yeah.
And plus, happy wife, happy home. The wife's from Louisville.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, his wife was from Louisville. Apparently, his wife, she played at Mercy. And she came in second for Miss Basketball.
Oh, wow.
Guess who won Miss Basketball?
Who won it?
Jeff Wall's sister.
What's her?
Walls. I ain't think off the top of my head, tired. But, yeah, that's who it was.
Wow. Plus, Cincinnati, Xavier, he was a team captain at Xavier for 2 years.
Right.
He's got roots in Cincinnati. He's right down the road.
Yeah.
It's intelligent. Plus, you would think if he's a coach at Xavier, he's been vetted.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize it was a Catholic. It's a Catholic school.
Though. Oh, yeah, it's a Catholic school.
There are priests, there are clergymen on the board of elders.
They've had some ones come through this through his team.
Wow.
It was the one talking about when they got in that big fight with Cincinnati a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And then, they got in a fight last year. And so I heard someone asking if they think he'll renew that rivalry with U of L and Cincinnati. And I don't know if him and Nick Cronin are going to get on the phone with each other and try to set up any kind of rivalry with U of L.
So, but they're also talking about his assistant coach,
2 of them.
Bill Murray's kid.
Right, I keep hearing Bill Murray beat the games. I'm like, slow the hell what?
What, you're not a Bill Murray fan?
I'm not a Bill Murray fan. I think he's all right. It's not going to get excited that he's at the game. Okay.
Well, I would.
So all it means is that ESPN and CBS during the time, he'll show up for the big games like Ashley Judd does in Lexington, and they'll take 100 shots of him.
So much better than Ashley Judd.
All right.
Well, he's
okay.
I don't know. I'd rather look at Ashley Judd.
Yeah, you're Louisville. All right, let's stay with Louisville. U of L's women, Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
Are they capable of beating UConn? Because UConn, this is one of those years where I think UConn is, their last game to get to the Final Four, they beat the team.
They beat South Carolina
29 or something like that.
Defending national champion.
About almost 30 points.
Right.
And Gino he's out for blood. But all right, stay with Louisville. The Louisville's they're in the Final Four. They are the bright spot in during this basketball season. So
I think of the teams left, they have the best chance.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think to be honest with you, that Mississippi State game's not going to be easy. And boy, it would suck for Louisville to have 3 of their team seasons ended by Mississippi State. The men lost to them in the NIT, and Louisville football team lost to them in the bowl game.
Wow.
But that Mississippi State team is good. Mississippi State team, of course, that upset UConn in the national semifinal last year. The William kid, she's still there. Who made the game-winning shot, she's still there. Mississippi State's a very good team, so it's going to be a hard one to even get there. And you kind of feel like, because when they played up there, and I went to that game when they played at UConn. UConn hit them with that 19-0 run in the first quarter, and they were playing catch-up the rest of the game. And, Louisville went on to outscore them in the second half. And they may even outscore them in the second quarter, but they never could get over that hump. That gives you confidence that, we did outscore them. But also, I think they got that big lead. UConn may have been coasting a little bit. And like I said, they're out for blood because they got knocked off in the national semifinal. I wouldn't be, if I had to pick, I wouldn't pick Louisville to beat UConn, but
I want to see that though.
You have to think. The thing is that if Louisville does ever get over that hump and wins the title, it's going to have to go through UConn. The 2 times they've gotten there, they lost to UConn, so you never know.
The talent's there in Louisville to beat UConn. It's there. Are they? And we know this. It's documented.
The correct thing is there's only one player on Louisville's team who was even offered by UConn. That's how good that lets the hill there against. Asia Dare is the only player on the team that's even offered to go to UConn. So that lets you know.
Was there?
Oh, jeez. Asia is so good, and I tell you who's been an unsung hero for this. There's a lot of them, but Sam Fearing has been great for them. She's so good inside. And Erica Carter, especially her story, because she had a decent freshman season. She was hurt all last year, and she's hit big shot after big shot after big shot for them this year. So they've got confidence going into their game, but I don't know if I can pick them to beat UConn.
Okay, let's take a moment to talk University of Kentucky. It wasn't one of their better regular seasons. They started getting their shit together at the end of the season. First couple games, Davidson, all right. Buffalo, good win. Kansas State, to me, bad loss. Well, summarize Kentucky's season this year.
Kentucky's season was what you would expect when you have a team that young. Because you're going to see moments when they look great, and you're going to see moments when they look absolutely terrible. And you're going to see great halves, you're going to see great spurts in games, and you're going to see spurts in that same game where they're going to look terrible. And then I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, this team doesn't play with heart." And to me, that's bullshit. They for them to be down, was it 13-1 this game against Kansas State, and to come all the way back and take the lead in the second half, you don't do that without heart. Yeah. The team did have heart. It's just young, and even though it opened up for them and looked like they can make a run to the Final Four, this team, they were a Sweet 16 team. That's what they were.
I agree. Sweet 16, I could have lived with Sweet 16 a month or so ago. However, to be in the situation, to be in that Kansas State game where P.J. Washington was having his way inside.
Had the best game of the season.
8 of 20 from the line. I hate to single out a player as a possible reason why we lost.
Yeah, his free throws, look at it and say, yeah, his free throws. But you also got to look at it like they got down 13-1 to start the game.
I get that.
And again, it's like I was talking about the game. It's like he's probably not shot 20 free throws in a game in his life. Right. And so he better get ready to shoot 20 of them now if he goes to the league, because they're going to be shacking him.
Let's stay with that. Let's look ahead. Who's leaving? Who's leaving off this team?
I think Shea has to go because his stock is as high as it's going to get.
He was huge.
Diallo probably shouldn't even have played this year. He probably should have went last year. Then possibly PJ, and definitely Kevin Knox.
I think PJ does stay. I just don't think PJ is a top first round. I don't think he's a first round pick.
He's probably not, but who would ever thought Daniel Orton would have gone in the first round?
Yeah, but
he played a whole hell of a lot more than Daniel Orton did.
No, that's a good point.
But I don't know. I was impressed with them after that game. They were upset that they lost, but it wasn't. I mean, because you never know what you're going to get. That's like one of the worst parts of my job is going into the locker room after a team is lost in the
and you were there
tournament.
You were in Atlanta too.
And so they were just legitimately nice kids.
This is a good
over
squad.
The tournament run. I really became a big fan of Diallo as a person, and Quade Green. Quade Green will literally say anything. He's got a. If Calipari, I don't think Calipari pays attention to anything they say, but if a coach that does, they'd be on bends and needles like if he was a U of L football player. We would talk to him. But he's liable to say anything. And he's great. He was great after the game when I was talking to him. And he still had a smile on his face. And they were a fun bunch to. And I recommend that you take a trip to Boise. And it's Boise, not Boise. It's Boise.
They will correct you real quick.
They will correct. They even got T-shirts that say Boise.
Boise.
Great restaurants.
Really?
The people are the nicest people I've ever met.
You had a good time there.
And for whatever reason, I don't know how this happened, every waitress and bartender we had was hot. I don't know where they came from. I don't know if they're imported.
Imported from Louisville.
It can't be that many
immigrants. Our fearless leader has his history with the immigrants.
It can't be that many pretty people in that small of an area, but it was. And we had a blast in Boise.
Staying with Kentucky, you were there in Atlanta. The issue with the handshaking afterwards. Now, I saw that they shook hands with the coaches and the players were celebrating, and the Kentucky players that left, Cal left. So the media and probably a few of the Kansas State players blew that.
Yeah, the Kansas State players. Once the Kansas State player says it, then the media is going to run with it. But. I mean, I didn't even notice it. Of course, as soon as the game ends, on my end, I'm heading back to the locker room anyway. So I don't hardly ever see the handshake at the tournament anyway. Mm-hmm. But just from the short time I've been around these kids, they're not those kinds of kids. And so I think there was something that was blown out of proportion. The Kansas State players were still celebrating when they were going through the handshake line. So, if I'm a player, if I just lost the game, I'm not going to sit here and wait for you to stop celebrating so I can shake your hand at the end of the game. I mean, I get it, it's a little bit of time, but they were out there for a while, and so I think that was blown out of proportion.
What happens? We got the coming up. We've got Kansas. What is it? Villanova, Michigan, Loyola of Chicago. Loyola of Chicago has a legit chance to win this thing. What does it do for because when it comes to the NCAA tournament, and usually the winner is one of these Power 5 schools, these elite schools.
It's always a Power 5.
It's always. What happens if Loyola wins this thing? What does that do to the college basketball?
It gives mid-majors more hope. I think what you'll see next year when people are filling out their brackets, they're going to pick a bunch of mid-majors to do it again. And right now, it shows that I don't even want to call it parity. To me, it just
doesn't it show that the committee doesn't know shit? Because
everybody knows. Anybody dealing with the NCAA that knows they don't know anything.
Yeah.
But I think part of it too is the gap is not nearly as wide between the major conferences and these mid-majors, and it's showing, and a lot of it is because a lot of the best players leaving early. And let's just be honest, college basketball is a watered-down product at this point anyway. And so the gap is not what it used to be. And so even if they don't win it, there's going to be a mid-major winning within the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, we had the 16-1 this year, and so
we had some great, great upsets.
And so it's not out of the question.
For the record, let's settle this here. The Loyola, Chicago, the whole. What is that? The sister thing? What is
Sister Jean?
Sister Jean.
There is no religious intervention here that's helping them win this. Just throwing it out. God does not pick favorites.
You promote your atheism on every episode.
God does not care who wins the national championship.
If he does,
he's got bigger things on his plate.
Really? No, seriously. Think about it. If he really did, wouldn't that cause controversy in itself? If God somehow was involved in them winning this?
God's involved in everything.
How exactly would we know that he picked who he picked?
Well, we'll save that question for our next guest because he'll have a.
But I mean, definitely, it's a great tournament. It's great to see a 16-1 upset.
Oh yeah,
it's great to see this story.
How funny, how little the rest of the country actually cares about the tournament. And so when we were in Boise. We was already done for the day. So, I mean, literally all the Louisville media, because we all hang out together, we're all friends. We're all out to eat at a restaurant. So they got the games on the TVs. And, like, our table is, like, reacting to everything. And, like, nobody else in the whole restaurant didn't even care. They'd look up every now and then because we were loud. No one else cared except us.
You just justified the reason why every year the Louisville area and the state of Kentucky always, from a ratings perspective, wins out.
Yeah, because
with college basketball.
I mean, I hate to break into who people who don't realize this, but no one cares about college basketball in the regular season outside of Kentucky, Indiana, Kansas, and North Carolina, and the ratings bear that out.
Right.
And like you listen to the.
It may be Indiana to degree.
That's not saying Indiana too, but like the ratings bear that out because like Louisville is the number 1 market for college basketball. Period. For all regulars, even in the regular season. But like it's like if you listen to the national shows like the Levitards and the Dan Patricks of the world,
or the Shooting from the Lips of the world.
But I said national.
Oh,
they not
international.
But right. They a lot of them, they're just making shit up. They don't know what they're talking about because they don't watch it.
They don't watch it.
They announce even like on ESPN. They don't know anything about Loyola, Illinois coming into the tournament. They've shown one game of theirs all year. They don't know. They do the same thing I do, Derby. I read.
And then with the NBA analysts on,
right? You didn't have it, but at least Charles doesn't fake it. Charles doesn't want up there being real about it.
But apparently, they give them time to brush up on this stuff.
Do.
They pull them away from the NBA.
They do, and even if when you're at the sites, because like on that practice day, which this year was weird, but I'll talk about that in a second. But like Chris Webber, you see Chris Webber, and the guys and girls calling the games. And just studying, like big time studying, because they don't know. Chris Webber's been calling the NBA all season. What's he know about Buffalo basketball? But seriously, but like this year, so like in Boise, like the early rounds, they had the open practices for the public. Mm-hmm. Well, in Atlanta they didn't, and then they're not doing it at the women's Final Four. They're close to the public, and they give the media 15 minutes to come in there and do practice. And literally in Atlanta, they had it on the clock. When the buzzer went out, you got the hell out. And so I'm like, I think I don't know what they're getting out of that, because that's the time for the people who can't afford these outrageous ticket prices to be able to come in there and see their teams up close, and they see them when they're loose. You get autographs. It's been plenty of times I've seen Kentucky and Louisville giving a ton of autographs after these practice sessions, and the fans don't get that this year. I think they cheated the fans with that this year.
All right. Before we let you go, Final Four, who's your pick?
I think I'm going with Villanova. Villanova is the most complete team. I think the championship, I don't know, Michigan's playing so well too. But that Villanova-Kansas game is going to be a really good game. I really like Devontae Graham for Kansas, and the kid that scored all 13 points in overtime. I think Kansas looks really good, but I think Villanova is probably going to win their second title in 2 years.
I like it for Hollywood if Loyola Chicago wins.
I would love it. Of course, Sister Jean would be all over everything. It's so funny because most of the country can name Sister Jean. Can't name one player on Loyola's team. They've been on national TV 2 days a week for 3 weeks.
And can't name a nun in their church either.
Right.
That's funny. Kendrick Haskins, Wave 3 News.
Thanks a lot for hanging out with us,
no
man.
Problem. Thanks for inviting me. I love drinking this beer out of a mason jar.
It is. My son's name's Mason, so I'm always reminded.
Is his middle name Jar?
No.
Well, then you failed
You
at naming
failed as a
kids.
parent.
My ex-wife named him, so that was it.
Right. So thanks again, Mr. Kendrick Haskins. This has been Shooting from the Lip Live, Baxter's Bar and Grill.